Good morning. Okay, we are in Galatians. So exciting, new book of the Bible. And we're talking about no other gospel. The Galatians think they need to be circumcised in order to be a follower of Christ. And Paul's saying, no, you don't have to believe in Jesus and be circumcised. So we're right at verse 11 of chapter 1 for Galatians, and Paul's just responding to this criticism that he's receiving about, he's basically taking a pastoral concern for the Galatian churches, and he's trying to say that the gospel that he received from Jesus is the true gospel. And this would be around, Paul's conversion was around 33 AD. And he's just expressing kind of his view and encouraging the Galatian church. So let's just go ahead and start verse 11 to verse 24 of chapter 1. And I'm going to go ahead and read it. Paul was called by God. So he's kind of going through a little bit of his story here. For I, meaning Paul, for I would have, brothers, that the gospel that was preached by me is not man's gospel. For I did not receive it from a man, nor was I taught it, but I received it through a revelation of Jesus Christ. For you have heard of my former life in Judaism. So he's referring to the Damascus road where Christ called him. How I persecuted the church of God violently and tried to destroy it. And I was advancing Judaism beyond many of my own age among my people. So extremely zealous was I for the traditions of my father. But when he being Christ, who had set me apart before I was born and who called me by his grace, was pleased to reveal his son to me in order that I might preach him among the Gentiles, I did not immediately consult with anyone, nor did I go to Jerusalem to those who were apostles before me, but I went into Arabia and returned again to Damascus. And we can see some of this in the book of Acts, his travels. Verse 18, after 3 years, I went up to Jerusalem to visit Cephas, which would be Peter, Apostle Peter, and remained with him for 15 days. But I saw none of the other apostles except James, the Lord's brother, and what I'm writing to you, before God I do not lie. Then I went into the regions of Syria and Cilicia, and I was still unknown in person to the churches of Judea that are in Christ. They only were hearing it said, he who used to persecute us is now preaching the faith he once tried to destroy, and they glorified God because of me. All right, so earlier I said I'm going to go back to verse 15 when it said, but when he who had set me apart before I was born and who called me by his grace was pleased to reveal his son. So back in verse 15, that was a reference to God revealing his son, Christ. I think I said that backwards. All right, so this is where it's important. Like I have marked in my Bible, God, Jesus. I mark whenever there's a location, and I kind of have a little code that I got from the Inductive Study Bible. Anyways, it's helpful to just kind of mark. I mark wherever they talk about the gospel. So there's a difference between just reading it and then studying it, and that's part of the journey of understanding the Bible. But anyways, we can see here that Paul was called by God, and he's basically saying that this is not a false gospel that man created, that this came directly through God's son Jesus to Paul, and so he's kind of setting down his credentials here for the Galatian church. I hope this encouraged you today. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll start in Galatians 2, which is just going to be talking about how Paul was accepted by the apostles. So we'll jump into that tomorrow.